we doing it better. Y'all some lightweights, Malik Wright, up all day and all night, pushing all the buttons up to something till it's alright. He looking at it from all sides and angles, got a stripes on his body like he played for the Bengals. Oh man, there's no one discussing it. They came, they stayed, they either did it or done it. Man, I love it, cause all they ever do is win. So kick back, relax, the TWSN.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Sit Down with Malik Wright recap show. I'm your host, Malik Wright, joined by my co-host, Daniel Alameda. We'll also be joined by my guy, Jared Erivian, who I'm very good friends with, who has been with me since I've started this journey. And you guys might know him as Bengal Central over on Instagram. Does great edits. Real big lover of the Bengals. And yeah, bear with me. I'm under the weather currently, battling the flu. So I wanted to make sure I brought this show to you guys tonight. So if I am lacking a little bit of energy, it's not due to the loss. It's due to me having the flu. But let me start by saying the Bengals fall to 4-6, losing to the Baltimore Ravens in a game that has so many layers. You know, obviously feeling the emotions right now is fresh. One thing I will say is, you know, it's easy to come on here and, you know, point the blame at officiating or point the blame at coaching or whatever the case may be. The fact of the matter is, I just want to first and foremost say they went up against a very good Ravens team tonight. They went up against a very good Ravens team tonight. And to me, it felt like the Bengals were the better team for majority of the night. But it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And they couldn't finish. You know, things started going downhill fast after the Chase Brown fumble. And we can nitpick, we could talk about different things. The fact of the matter is that can't happen in that moment. That can't happen in that moment. You know, we talked a lot about the defense. And I cautioned and I said, hey, they played great the first half, right? You can't look at, we can't look at the defense and say, hey, the defense is poor. Not even us, the front office, can't look at the defense and say the defense is poor and then make no attempts to get the defense to get better at the trade deadline. Honestly speaking, they are playing with house money today. The way that they played in that first half, they were playing with house money, but that doesn't matter. In the NFL, people don't care about how you started. People don't care about what you didn't have. They care about the end result. End result is the Bengals, lost to the Baltimore Ravens. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, tip of the cap, absolutely on fire tonight. Joe Burrow threw the ball 56 times. They had 13 rush attempts with Chase Brown. This other second leading rusher after Chase Brown was Joe Burrow with 2. Wasn't really a balanced game plan, which makes sense. The Ravens have the worst pass defense in the league, so you're going to probably try to take advantage of that. I've certainly have some more thoughts on this game and definitely some more stuff to get into, but I want to make sure that we get Jared in here and obviously get anyone on the conversation. So without further ado, Jared Reven. What's going on, man?
Thanks for having me, man. I wish it was on a little better terms tonight with the Bengals win, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, it's one of those things where you gotta. Again, it's fresh. It stings. You're taking it on the chin a little bit here, but it was definitely some missed opportunities. You expected. I really felt in my gut that the Bengals are going to pull this one out, man. I really thought the Bengals were going to pull this one out, but I want to get your overall thoughts on the game. And Danny, I want you to pitch in as well.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that first half. Well, we can start in the first half, I guess. I mean, that first drive, the way they came out in a hostile environment, primetime game in Baltimore. I loved the way they came out, and
yeah,
they were running the ball, they were mixing the run in with the pass, and after that drive, you kind of see how easily they marched down the field, and you're like, okay, here we go, another shootout. But that just wasn't the case. The defense was standing up, and the Bengals were on the field so much in the first half offensively. And the defense, I think it was only 22 offensive snaps in the first half for Baltimore, something like that.
Yeah.
And they were just keeping Lamar Jackson off the field. And you kind of saw how that, I mean, they went into halftime with and then it was really that Chase Brown fumble to me. If you look at it, you come out in the second half, you get that touch, you get that 3-and-out, then you get that first play touchdown to Jamar Chase. Everything's going great. And then the Chase Brown fumble, it just kills all the momentum. The defense is right back out there on the field, and it's just a recipe for disaster.
Completely. And I think we can obviously discuss, I do want to discuss the end of the game, and I'm with you. They look like the better team. And that's the frustrating part. This is an encapsulation of the entire Bengals season, right? This is how it's gone. And this is the part where I'm not going to say the season's over. And we'll get into what it means down the road. How do they, finish off the season? I'm not going to be calling for the off season right now. I'm not doing that. And I think that fans shouldn't be doing that because of the way that this team looks in spurts. It's okay to call this team not a great football team right now. It's okay to say that this team isn't closing games. But the story I feel like that will be forgotten is just how good this team has played against the great teams, but they just can't close it out, man. And that's what we've got to figure out. We will discuss what is the root issue. But when we talk about it, the Kansas City Chiefs game, the Baltimore Ravens game, the first time you were up by 10 points, this game, man, the feeling that was going on, Bengals Twitter in the game, go look at the environment. It was dead silent in there. And the second half, you saw what happened. And looking at where it started, Malik, you brought up the great point. It was the Chase Brown fumble. That's where it started, right? Everything was going great. And hindsight is 2020. What can you do to really change that? You can't necessarily blame Zach for that. You can't necessarily blame Joe Burrow for that. You can blame Chase Brown, but that's just part of, you've got to be situationally aware and you've got to say, hey, that happened in the Giants game at the end of the game, right? We were there in the suite, TWSN suite, and we're watching that, and they almost lost that game because of a Chase Brown fumble. Luckily, that ball went back to the Bengals. But let's discuss the end of the game right now, Jared. We'll talk about the 2-point conversion. Let's start off there, right? Do you think it was the right decision to go for the 2-point conversion? I think that's what a lot of people were discussing. Let me just start off also by saying this. The refereeing, you can definitely say it was a missed call. I don't believe that's how you lost the game. And when you actually go back and look at it, the Bengals were playing with house money on that final drive. 4th down to Andre Yoshivas. That was the play where the game was over there, basically. It was 3 straight incomplete passes, and you got a great play by Yoshivas, great hands, barely got it over. So that entire drive, it felt like your back were up against the wall. So I think that the one notion I will say, it seemed like Zach went into this game with an aggressive mindset. No matter what, we are going to go for it. You go look at the 2 4th downs early on in the game. So let's start off there. 4th downs. What were your thoughts? The 2 ones early on in the game, the passes to Jermaine Burton, and then that last 2-point conversion. What was your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess here I'll start with the 2 4th downs that happened. I think there was one in the first half, one in the second half.
Yeah.
I was furious watching that live. I mean, you are sitting there 3rd and short, and you're passing the ball twice. Malik mentioned it at the beginning of the show. The Bengals only ran the ball with Chase Brown 13 times. Khalil Herbert had 1 carry that he fumbled, and then he never saw the field again. Joe Burrow had 2 carries. They weren't running the football. But when it's 3rd and short, and you're probably going for it on 4th down, I would like to make that 4th down a little bit more manageable, or just pick up 2 yards on the ground. It's not like you have to run it on 4th down if you run it on 3rd down. And also, too, I understand that first 4th down, Joe Burrow was extending the play. He was looking around the field, and that throw was deep down the field to Burton. That probably was a 2nd, 3rd, 4th read on that play. But still, I just disagree with how they went from 3rd down, and then how it carried over into 4th down on both of those attempts. And then the second 4th down, it was Jamar Chase go route on the right side of the field, and then it was Jermaine Burton on the left side of the field. And for a guy like Jermaine Burton, who hasn't seen the field a lot, to be throwing go routes to him on fourth down is ridiculous to me. And then going to the 2-point conversion at the end of the game, I think that was absolutely the correct decision by Zach Taylor and the coaching staff. I mean, Lamar Jackson in that Ravens offense, it looked like a completely different Bengals defense in that second half. And I'm sure we'll get into it, but that is not all to blame on the defense. But I mean, I think it was 3 straight drives with a touchdown for the Ravens, and they had 2 timeouts, and they were going to have somewhere around 40 seconds left on the clock, if I'm not mistaken. I think you go for the coffin nails there, because even if you get that 2-point conversion, you're banking one on Lamar not marching down the field. And say you do kick the extra point, it's going to be a coin flip because both offenses were firing. So I think whoever won that coin toss in overtime was going to win that game.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. And for me personally, this is where it seems like everybody's on kind of the same path that they should have gone for it. My gut decision when I was watching it, and this is just me, maybe I wasn't taking into account the overtime. It's going to be a coin flip, and whoever gets it's going to score the touchdown. For me, I was thinking, hey, regardless of what happens here, if you get the 2-point conversion, the Ravens still got 30 seconds and 2 timeouts to go down and kick a field goal. That's where my mind went personally. And I was saying, hey, listen, I trust my offense, and I still trusted the Bengals defense to where obviously at that moment the Ravens were rolling. But for me, it was like gut decision. I was saying, hey, it seemed like they went in with a preconceived notion. And this is what Zach Taylor was saying. Hey, we're going to be aggressive. And listen, if you live by the sword, you got to die by the sword. And that's kind of how they went about it with their. So all around, man, I think the Bengals fans deserve to feel like this was a gut punch, because respectfully, this was a game where everything's clicking, man. Jamar Chase, 80-yard touchdown, 252 or 3 tutties. And
3 touchdowns, 264 yards, 11 receptions. That is a generational performance.
Generational. And that's where, man, they were firing all cylinders. And once again, this was the story of the Bengals season so far. So it's a tough situation to be in. I think that, like, we can discuss Zach Taylor should be fired. I don't know, man. I just don't like, I'm not going to blame it on the refs as well. The refs also, there was many times where earlier in the game, the Bengals were getting a lot of calls. Yeah.
Let me say this. Let me just say this real quick. And again, I'm jumping in, battling the slew here. I don't really have a problem with the 2-point conversion. You have to try to play to win that game, albeit the Ravens still had 2 timeouts. They were going to get the ball back. So who knows? They could have went down the field and Justin Tucker could have kicked a game-winning field goal. And we don't even get to overtime. We don't know. But one thing I will always say, a lot of it comes down to situational coaching. Situational coaching. So while I don't have a problem with you going for it, I do have a problem with the personnel mismanagement. That is what I'm saying. Tanner Hudson had no business being in that game in that spot. And, whoever the play is designed for, I get it. Like, and you're decimated at the wide receiver position, but I just don't believe that guy should have been in the game in that pivotal of a moment, nor should he have been the read. But that's much more on Joe than it is on Zach. And that's, if he makes the catch, maybe I'm saying something completely different. But the way I see this game is I feel like the Bengals play their ass off today against a very, very good team. And you can't mention the flaws of the defense without mentioning the fumble, without mentioning the absolute collapse that happened, which allowed the Ravens, to take the lead and build this momentum. I will say it's impressive that they did this without Orlando Brown at left tackle. Cody Fort was a liability out there constantly tonight. Joe Burrow was battling for his life. So, it's one of those things where I feel like the offense showed up today. The defense showed up in the first half. The offense stalled out in a spot in which we really needed them to show up. And one thing I'll say is I understand the dude. I understand the dude fumbled on his first carry, but you brought Khalil Herbert in here to spell Chase Brown. Yeah, he saw one play, and he was taken out. He was taken out at that point. So, like, there's just a little bit of mismanagement going on, and I just, there were spots in which, when you're on a positive side of territory, you take 2 deep shots to Jamar Chase and then to Jermaine Burton, and Zach Taylor double downs on it. He says, "Hey, if we get one-on-one coverage, we're always going to take that shot." But for me, it's like it's knowing when to take that shot. It's about situational coaching, and again, that's not just one person or that's falls squarely on the play caller and Zach. If I'm on plus side of territory and we're up by 2 scores, I'm running the ball. I'm trying to get that clock to dwindle down a little bit, as well as, you're up with the lead. That's when you try to get the running game going to some degree. So I thought that they kind of, again, got away from what got them, what works, and sort of like fundamental sound football things that you learn at a grade school level. And then you got a little too pass happy. 56 passes from Joe Burrow today. I don't care who the quarterback is. You never really want to see that number. You want to see a little bit more, balanced. And he was taking a lot of unnecessary shots as well. And I don't think anybody on this panel here is making excuses, Alex, for this team. I'm just not as pitchfork fire ready right now because maybe because I'm under the weather. But I'll continue to say this: it was mismanagement with the lead. They did not know how to play with the lead, and it showed. It showed that they constantly played in close games and played from behind all season. And it came back to bite them in the ass in a very pivotal moment. But Daniel, continue.
No, you're right. And that's where it really comes down to. That's the discussion, right? Is what is the root cause of this? And it really is just timely mistakes all around from everybody. You go look at that Chiefs game, the Joe Burrow fumble. You go look at, a couple other games. It's just timely mistakes. It's mismanagement late in the game. And that's the part that's frustrating. We had, a couple comments in here earlier. And once again, if you guys have any questions, make sure you guys drop them down below. We're going to get to all you guys' questions. It's just such a frustrating thing right now because this team looks so damn good in spurts, man. And the story coming out of this game at the beginning was, hey, we were all on the same page. Lou Anarumo, this dude is cooking Lamar Jackson. That stadium was quiet. It was literally everybody was silent, and you let them get back in the game. And that's the part where you would hope that after a Chase Brown fumble that you could see this team rally, but they just couldn't end up rallying. And even that, like I said, that final drive really was like, it felt like they were just playing with their backs up against the wall. It didn't feel like it was really like they were in control of the game. It felt like they really lost control of the game once that Chase Brown fumble. And then you go look at the Tylan Wallace play. That was something where another one, I thought that was a great decision by Zach. I thought that, hey, you go punt the ball and you make them drive 86 yards. And they scored it pretty much in 3 plays. So, Jared, what were your other thoughts on, the rest of the game?
One thought I had when we were talking about the 2-point conversion at the end of the game there is the dream for the Bengals offense is having Jamar Chase one-on-one, right? And when Zach Taylor came down and they lined up in the 2-point conversion the first time, you had Jamar Chase one-on-one on the outside there. You had it right there. Your best player one-on-one. When the game's on the line, who do you want to be targeting in that situation? And everyone knows that answer. It's Jamar Chase. It's number one. And I understand wanting to take another look. I understand all that stuff. But if you're drawing up a play in that situation, you're drawing it up for Jamar Chase. You have to, and you have one-on-one, and if you take that timeout and you come out of that timeout, you're most likely not getting that one-on-one scenario. Yeah. So that was something where I was looking at it, and in the moment I was like, okay, timeout. But looking back, it's like, man, that's the matchup you really wanted. Another issue I had as well is Chase Brown. Malik mentioned Khalil Herbert after that one touch he had. I understand he fumbled, but I understand he's 72 hours into the Bengals facility, into their team, and it is short. But Chase Brown is getting a really heavy workload. I mean, 11 targets as a running back. That was it was 13 carries on the ground, but the extension of the running game for them tonight was those short dump offs to Chase Brown, those short dump offs to their tight ends. And I mean, like that, we even saw it last week against the Raiders. He was starting to get banged up. You can't give a back of his size that many touches a game. It's just not sustainable for the Bengals offense. One thing I also want to say is Lou Anarumo's game plan was amazing tonight.
Phenomenal.
You saw what the Bengals plan was the entire night. It was keep Lamar Jackson on the field, these long sustained drives offensively, and they did it to a T. And it's just they were stopping the run. They were getting Lamar out of the pocket, knowing that he was a little banged up, and they did everything right. It's just when the defense was getting thrown out onto the field over and over and over again, we saw the tackling start to decline. We saw all that stuff. And I think it comes back to the fact that this Cincinnati Bengals defense right now just doesn't have enough talent for Lou to execute these amazing game plans. I mean, like we saw the script he had, and no other team had ever done that. I think that there was something saying like the Bengals held the Ravens to the fewest amount of points they all season long in that first half.
Yep.
And it just the talent wasn't there. And I shout out to BJ Hill playing really banged up. You saw him in the backfield a couple of times. He's just you got to respect a guy like that who is clearly injured and throwing it all on the line there. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that you're right. And for everybody that wants to, figure out blame and this kind of, thought process I'm going as, okay, what's the issue? Why are we here? Right. Once again, and this is my philosophy. Yes, the refs missed some calls. I'm not going to blame this all on the refs. And I do think that that's a poor way to look at this. Like we're allowed to, and you should look at that, especially that last play, right? Hands in the face. But that is not the sole reason why the Bengals were in that spot. That is not the sole reason. Once you look at the beginning of the game, many times the Bengals, the first drive, right? It was 4th down. You got a flag, boom. There were many points of the game where the flags were on your favor. So where my mind goes is, and Malik, I thought you brought this up, and Jared, you did as well, was the management of talent. You look at this game, right? A guy like Jermaine Burton, I think he made some mistakes, but I think that you go look at this. There is no reason this being his first full game playing in week 9, week 10. How is this where you are? Because you go look at those 4th downs, and this is maybe just me looking hindsight 2020. I don't believe he's in that position. I don't believe he makes those mistakes if he got reps week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5. And then you go look at the defense. Guys like Miles Murphy had a couple time, big time plays. Joseph Asai even looked good in spurts. I don't believe that you're in this position if you give these young guys, extra reps early on the season. Jordan Battle, Geno Stone, the big touchdown play to Tylan Wallace. You look at Geno Stone's effort just jogging, and then he gets beat, and Tylan Wallace goes out there and scores a touchdown. So I think that that's kind of where my mind goes, is the organizational structure, how they've failed to add talent on this defense. The Jermaine Burton thing, like I said, he played a lot of snaps today, and he was one of the guys, 5 targets, 1 reception. He had a big-time reception, 3rd down on the goal line. But how was he not in the game plan early on in the season? Because Tee Higgins was out. So you've got to prep yourself for these moments, and I don't feel like the organization as a whole did that early on in the season.
One thing I just want to Malik, if you
one thing I just want to get to, let's get to TN's comments real quick. Says Lou is shit, bro. Plays soft zones when they get a lead and just gives up yards and bunches. Then wants to try and play physical again. Let me just add to that real quick for a second. And this probably be the only time I cook on this show today. A guy that is widely looked at around the league as one of the top assistants. Everybody I speak to, and I speak to a lot of people, they feel like this front office has hurt him in terms of the talent that is on this team. Nobody thinks Lou is a shit defensive coordinator. This is the same defensive coordinator that virtually shut down Josh Allen in the playoffs. It's the same defensive coordinator that virtually shut down Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs in prime spots. Nobody looks at him as a shit defensive coordinator. Everybody says he is a product of the talent that he has. He's calling his game as he always has. Geno Stone was a bad signing by the Bengals, has not panned out at all, constantly in the wrong place. I believe that Baltimore defense protected him a lot, which is why he had success. You talk about why he played soft zone, because he has cornerbacks that cannot play man-to-man coverage without getting fouled, without getting penalties called on them for holding, or it's just bad technique no matter which way you look at it. The best cornerback that they had went down, right, with an ACL injury, who went from their safety down to the cornerback position. But there's a reason why DJ Turner lost the battle to Dax Hill. There's a reason why there was concerns about a DJ Turner. So you have to play zone coverage with these guys, because guess what? We've seen firsthand this year, whether it's Xavier Legette going up against Cam Taylor-Britt or Deontay Johnson going up against Cam Taylor-Britt, when they try to get physical at the line of scrimmage, they just don't have the manpower, the guys that have the capabilities to play man-to-man coverage. So that tells me that in the offseason, no matter who the defense coordinator is, because everybody's coming out with the pitchfork saying fire Lou, you need to address the cornerback position, because you can change coaches all you want. But at the end of the day, at some point, the damn players got to execute. And listen, it is what it is, right? It is what it is. I'm not going to sit up here and say things are going to get better soon if they're not. It's a shit show what it is. But but to look at this situation and, you see the red flags that this team has on it from the defensive side of things, knowing they need another edge rusher, knowing they need corners, this is a front office error. This is a front office error. It's miraculous. It's crazy to think that when Lou first took over the Bengals defense, everybody was coming out with their pitchfork saying fire him. And I was like, no, don't fire the guy. The guy's talented. The guy just needs to get his players in here. He finally got players in here, and they started making plays, and then they went on a Super Bowl run. And we forget that. And it's the same guy that can have success, but the fact of the matter is there is a true lack of talent on the defensive side of the ball in Cincinnati. They need another edge rusher. They need to go out there and get secondary help. They need to go out there and get a true free safety, somebody that they can rely on, somebody that can go out there and make plays, and understands the communication aspect of this, of what they're trying to do as well on this Bengals defense. But it's not just come out with pitchforks saying, hey, let's fire Lou because the defense is bad. It's bad execution all around, man. It's bad execution all around. Like you can't be playing soft coverage and then turning your back to receivers before they even make a break. Their breaks, like it's just a clown show. It's really, really poor. And to be honest with you, I feel bad for people like Trey Hendrickson who are busting their ass. If I'm going to give Lou any grievance, is the fact that I would like to see more of Myles Murphy to see what that guy has. But no, I do not think Lou is a shit defensive coordinator. I think Lou will go somewhere where if the Bengals were to fire him, I think some team would scoop him up to be their defensive coordinator. And if they're willing to build around him defensively, he will have a successful defense. That's what I think on it. But I understand where the fan base feels like he's terrible and the proof is in the pudding. Listen, it already feels like the writing is on the wall in terms of who the scapegoat might be if this thing doesn't get correct. It already feels like that. So there ain't too much. And I'm here to tell you right now, as far as co-signing how much input he has, and maybe I shouldn't be saying this because I talk to people around that organization. He don't got too much input. Don't got too much say in what he wants. He begged that organization to keep DJ Reader. He begged the organization to keep Jesse Bates. He wanted them to keep Von Bell the first time around, and they scoffed at both of those things because guess what? It didn't align with what their pockets say. It didn't align with what their pockets wanted. So guess what? He got the shit end of the stick, and he got chips. He got what was left, whatever left over. They replaced Jesse Bates with a Nick Scott, right? Yeah. That's what was given to this guy. It's you better take whatever we give you, essentially. Well, he's getting to the point now where he has enough status in the league where he could just fucking leave Cincinnati, and he could probably be treated proper and get a real opportunity to do something. But this dude isn't just saying, hey, I'm fine with my defensive tackle DJ Reader walking out, or I'm fine with this not working out, that we're not working out. I could not believe my eyes when I was told. I said, would they Bengals even consider? I was talking to somebody from the front office. I said, would they even consider drafting an edge rusher? No, because we feel like we have an overarching number of players at that position to where it'll be hard to get players on the field. I'm like, what? So if a Jared Verse is sitting you in your face, you wouldn't consider Jared Verse? No, we wouldn't consider him. And now look at this. You got Trey Hendrickson on an island fighting for his life. And now you're like, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And you're surprised when, some of these players aren't stepping up. He's forced to say some of these players are going to take the next step. People like Joseph Asai and all this kind of stuff, because it's what he's working with. He's a defensive coordinator. He's a coach. He's not going to shit talk players. He's doing the best job he can with the players that he's been given. That's my thought process. Like, the fact of the matter is, this is Duke and his staff making these calls. It's like this. Put you in a room, all right? Put you in a room. Jared, you're in charge of the defense. Daniel, you're in charge of the offense. Well, Daniel's the head coach of the team. He's an offensive-minded head coach, right? So who do you think we're going to favor's opinion a little bit more? Well, Daniel, right? Okay, we have our star quarterback. We're going to do everything you want. Hey, Lou, we know, hey, Jared, I know you say you need a defensive tackle. I know you say you need an edge rusher. We'll try to address those needs. All right, boom. The draft happens. You go out there, you see a player. Daniel's the head man in charge. He sees a player that he wants. You go with that. All right. The second round comes around. All right. Man, I know you really like this edge rusher, Jared, but we have another shot, another offensive player, man, that is sitting right here, man. We have another offensive player sitting right here that we could get, that we could really, really do well with. All right. Boom. We're gonna go with what Daniel wants as well. All right. So now you look at it. It's the draft, right? There's 2 rounds down now. We've gone with 2 players that Daniel wants, right? Now the third round comes around. Hey, listen, we'll come back around to what you want now. Well, at this point, I've got chips. What are you giving me to work with? That's how this process has worked in Cincinnati for the last couple of years. That's what it's been. Zach and his offense gets precedent over said defense. It's the same thing. They went out. They knew Zach Moss had an injury. What did they do? They addressed the running back position ASAP. What did they do for the defense? Nothing. It's not rocket science. But again, in the fan base's eyes, the offense is putting up 30-plus points. But what is the defense? Oh, the defense is a shit show. Well, go figure. Oh, that money I know that you want me to put, towards your star free safety is one of the best free safeties in the league. Now we're not gonna put towards that because we need to save that for an extension for Tee Higgins or an extension for Jamar Chase or an extension for a Joe Burrow. So then that guy walks out the building. It's rinse and repeat. It's not shocking to me, very evident, but it just sucks that dude is getting a bad rap for inept front office. Daniel.
Right. No, you're right. And I think I want to get to Sean's comment in a second about, Zach Taylor and us being furious. But something I've said time and time again, I think it's very valuable that, we've got a platform to kind of change the narrative, right? And the narrative heading out of this game is the Bengals gave up 35 points and the Bengals defense was a huge part of the issue. They gave up 7 points heading into, the second 2.5 quarters into this game. 7 points. Everybody who's watching the game is going to forget the face of Lamar Jackson heading into half. Is going to forget the face of the fans. Is going to forget the graphics that popped up about this being the first time the Ravens were ever down by 14 plus points since 2020 or 2021. They're going to forget that Lamar Jackson threw for only 50 yards in the first half. They're going to forget that Derrick Henry rushed for only 40 something yards at the beginning of the game. They're going to forget the big time stops that this Bengals defense was making. That's what they're going to forget. And I feel like that's the frustrating part because momentum is real. And after the Chase Brown fumble, that's where shit turns south. And once again, people are looking to see, all right, where do you blame? I think it's a whole colossal effort, but I don't feel like Lou Anarumo is the sole reason why the Bengals lost this game. But Jared, I kind of want to get to this question.
Hear me out. Yeah. No defensive coordinator in the league is going to come in and do a better job with the talent that he's been given. If a new defensive coordinator comes in and you're expecting wholesale changes, well, gosh, I really, really hope that they start to put that guy in a position to be successful. They went in and they said they did 2 offseasons where they went out and they signed an external free agents. And when they said, hey, we're going to add to this defense, they never did it again. They've continuously tried to build this defense through the draft and with back-end players that have been released. Shit's sad. Daniel, sorry.
Oh, you're good. You're good. And we got a question here from Jim Gagner. We can answer this, but it was Malik. I would like to hear your thoughts on the 2 deep balls on short to gain, both of 4th down. Is that Joe Burrow checking to that? Is that the first read, and why is that what we went to?
Horrible. That's on Joe Burrow. Horrible. Listen, I had $600 on a Jermaine Burton anytime touchdown. Nobody wanted it more than me, but that you had 2 yards to get, buddy. You went for the deep ball, and I feel like Joe Burrow wanted it for Jermaine Burton tonight.
Yes,
he looked for him several times tonight. He really wanted it for him tonight. You could tell sometimes he was pushing, But it was egregious. It was bad.
No, completely. And I think that that's where you can pinpoint those two. The first one, I don't necessarily know if that was, like the drawn up play. The second one for sure. And it was a good look. Like it was, if it's a third down, like that ball was, if the ball was there, that's a ball that Joe Burrow completes 9 times out of 10.
We have another question out here from Tanner Bush. I'm going to stand on business. I'm going to stand on business right now. It says, how can you excuse Lou putting Pratt and Stone out there? Listen, at this point, the organization went out there and they signed Geno Stone. They went out there and they extended Jermaine Pratt, right? Jermaine Pratt looked a lot better last year than he did this year. But, I mean, the linebacker unit was playing like him and Logan Wilson are playing two of the better linebackers in the National Football League for the first part of the season. The fact of the matter is, what do you want him to do? You want him to bench him for Joe Bocci? You want him to bench him for Akeem Davis-Gaither? Like, Akeem Davis-Gaither is already playing a lot.
Yeah.
Like, Jermaine Pratt has made a lot of plays here in Cincinnati, right? A lot of plays, a lot of game-changing plays, from interceptions to fumbles, the whole 9 yards. You don't just bench a playmaker at the linebacker position. Shit, I could point to Logan Wilson at points tonight too. Then I could say, hey, why is Logan Wilson out there? Players are going to have bad plays. Geno Stone, 100%, I agree with you. That guy shouldn't be playing anymore. And that might fuck up an interview opportunity that I had coming up with him, but the guy sucks. I'm just calling it what it is. Bengals need to find a way. Maybe you put Tyson Anderson out there. Maybe you do something different, but that guy doesn't need to see the football field.
Completely. MD said, you guys are better at gambling than me, but what would it be your guys' odds? He said, you guys are better at gambling than me. He said, what would be your guys' odds of the Ravens scoring in 39 seconds if the Bengals got the 2-point conversion? Jared, obviously this is hypothetical, but what was your thoughts on how confident were you that the Ravens would go down there and score with 30 seconds left in the game?
I was very confident that they would go down and get a field goal there. I remember not the year prior where Joe Burrow had the wrist injury, but the year before. It was a primetime game in Baltimore. I think the Bengals have the ball on the 1 or 2 yard line. Joe Burrow sneaks it in. There's about a minute left on the clock, and I'm sitting there with my brother, and we just know what's about to happen. And it's Lamar Jackson extending plays, getting the ball to the Bengals 45-yard line, and it's Justin Tucker lining up for a field goal, and it's automatic. And I know Justin Tucker hasn't been automatic this year. He missed that PAT late in the game, or late-ish in the game, but I mean, you kind of know what's going to happen. You see what's coming. So I mean, I was very, if I had to bet either way, I would probably bet on the Ravens getting a field goal in that situation.
Yeah, and that's where I think I agree with that, and that's where my whole thought process on the 2-point conversion. I'll go back and see, and maybe I'm just reading too much into it, but like the game wasn't. Obviously, it was won and lost at that point, but there were still so many points. And TN has a question. So what changed from first half defense to second half? I can only point to playing less man-to-man, a softer zone. I get the talent, but they let the foot off the gas on defense. I think there were a multitude of things. I think the first thing is momentum is a real thing, and momentum, that's on not only coaching, but that's on the players and like.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I wanted to add to this quick. The Bengals 100% overperformed today defensively.
Yes.
They overperformed defensively today. And when you're in a situation in which you overperform defensively, you need things to go perfect to make sure the game closes out. Guess what? They were overperforming. People must have forgot. They took the Ravens punter had like 5 to 6 punts today. They were getting the stops. What happened was they were in close to their own territory. Chase Brown fumbles the ball, and then the air goes out of the team. The energy literally shifts. Saw it right before our very own eyes. So now the defense is playing in short yardage situations against one of the most lethal players in the NFL, who's playing like the MVP. So he makes quick work, scores a touchdown. Your offense comes back out there and what? Goes 3 and out?
Mm-hmm.
Not 3 and out. Did they go 3 and out? I don't remember exactly the play. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but they didn't score. I think that might have been
the fourth down.
Sure,
the Bengals or who?
Yeah, the Bengals. The Bengals went. They punted the ball. They punted the ball. They chose to punt the ball.
Bengals punted. The Ravens went and scored that huge touchdown. And then the Bengals turned the ball over. That was the Jermaine Burton pass on the left side.
Yeah. So those are the things that kind of took place that led up to that. But the defense was already playing with house money. They were already holding on by a thread. That's just my thought process. I don't know.
No, completely. You're right. And people are saying, like Nick Falk said, you're saying they're confident they go down and score the ball in 30 seconds is an argument for going for 2. I don't think that's what we're saying. We're not saying that's the main reason. I think what the sentiment for going for 2, and once again, I personally disagree, but I can understand the aggressiveness. Hey, you got to go out there and win. The sentiment is you don't want the Ravens to get the ball first in overtime. I think that's what, Jared, is that what you're saying? I feel like that's what pretty much everybody's saying.
Yeah, we're not leaving the game up to a coin toss because, I mean, at the end of the day, and this is for everyone who thinks the Bengals are going to march in there and hold the Ravens to 21 points. The Ravens have the MVP favorite right now. They have the Offensive Player of the Year favorite right now in Derrick Henry. They have a receiver who's top 10 in receiving yards this year, who is one of the best man beaters in Zay Flowers on the other side. Rashad Bateman's having a breakout year. You still have a guy who's been an all-pro tight end multiple years in this league and Mark Andrews to worry about. This offense is putting up historical numbers this year. And you know that going into the game. So what I'm saying is you see the percentages, you see what is going to give me the best chance to win this game. I'm not going to say Lamar Jackson's going to make a mistake because Lamar Jackson's made 2 mistakes. He's been intercepted twice this year.
No.
That's what I'm saying.
No, completely. And I think that, and that's why I think this discussion is going to be something like, so I disagree. I think that you just kick the field goal, you play it out. Like I said, regardless, you're going to have to play defense there. And then you go to overtime. I'm confident in Burrow and the offense. Hopefully you get that coin toss. But regardless, I feel like the more important conversation, is the conversation that, like Sean Brennan said. He said this was the season, right? This offense is incredible, but you guys really believe that they can win 6 out of the next 7 games? Listen, this is a team you cannot give up on the season. Put yourself in the Bengals shoes, right? Everybody, let's have an exercise. Once again, we appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure you guys like this video and subscribe. We've got a lot of content on the way. We appreciate everybody tuning in. This is like therapy, right? And this is the post game. We got to discuss it. Put yourself in the organization's shoes. Put yourself as a coach, right? Say you're a defense coordinator. Say you're the head coach. Say the organization. Are you punting the season away? Right? Oh, what good does that do? Right? Does it let you have an easier path to fire your head coach? No, you got a quarterback, and this puts pressure on the front office. We're being honest, right? The pressure is on. Your quarterback on a national scale is being widely regarded as the best quarterback in the NFL. You have the arguably best wide receiver in the NFL who just put up 250 yards. This puts pressure on the organization. Zach Taylor's been feeling the pressure, and he should. But this puts pressure on the organization to say, hey, Zach Taylor can't make a move himself. It is the organization. It is Duke Tobin. It is, what do you guys do to change this? So I don't think that this season it's not over until it's over. You got Joe Burrow playing there. So I'm not giving up. You can't just give up. You're not mathematically out of this. Is it looking bright? Is the feeling in the locker room going to be pumped up, juiced up? I think that there's some serious concern for that, right? You are 4-6. But if I'm sitting here, am I saying I'm not confident in this team? I feel like I'm not confident in them to close out games. But anytime, it's not like these other teams, respectfully. The Colts are ahead of the Bengals in the standings. The Broncos are ahead of the Bengals in standings. If I'm a Broncos or Colts fan, am I confident in my team making the playoffs right now? Probably not. So I think anytime you have a quarterback like Burrow and Jamar Chase playing the way that he is, I think you still got a shot. But like I said, you're going to have to do something very improbable. You're going to have to sweep the Steelers. You're going to have to beat a Chargers team that's on fire right now. So mathematically, you are not out. And I don't think that fans should be thinking to the offseason right now. I think that that's a poor way to look at this. I think you can be mad at the front office, but to say you're done watching the season, I think you're lying to yourself as well, because the season ain't over yet. So, Jared, do you think the season's over?
Absolutely not. And I mean, you see what this offense does tonight, and you have to think you're without your third and fourth best players on the offensive side of the football in Orlando Brown and Tee Higgins. Joe Burrow threw for 400 yards. Let me pull up some stats. The Bengals had 470 yards of offense tonight without Tee Higgins, without Orlando Brown, without really a second running back in the mix. It was only Chase Brown. Like seeing that team do that, you can't give up on this offense, and you can't give up on these game plans crafting up. And I mean, the Bengals are lucky in the sense of their schedule in terms of tiebreakers and how stuff might break for the playoffs fits really well if they do, which I'm not saying they will. If they do win 6 out of these next 7 games, or even 7 out of these next 7, because we've seen them do it before and we've seen them wind up in an AFC championship game because of it. If they do win, all these tiebreakers are going to be in their favor. I mean, the Steelers, the Chargers, the Broncos are on the schedule, and all those teams are teams that are ahead of you right now. And if you beat them, you're going to have the tiebreaker over them. I'm not saying it's super probable, but I mean, if there was a schedule to do it, if there was a scenario to do it, this is the one.
Yeah. And I think the way I look at this, and people are saying it can't get done, of course, this is you put yourself in this position. Right, Zach Taylor in this organization losing the Patriots game. You put yourself in this position. That's the story after the season. Once it's fully confirmed, if they're not making the playoffs, that's what I'm going to be discussing. I think that's what we should be discussing. Hey, you put yourself in that position early on in the season. You could not afford to lose this game now. If you won that Patriots game, or if you won one of those earlier season games, you could have afforded to lose this game. But at this point, no, you can't. So looking ahead, you got this Chargers team who's playing on fire right now. You got a bye week, then you got the Steelers. If you can go out there and win those 2 games, you put yourself at 6-6, then you go from there. But all around, like I said, just looking at even just how this team performed, man. You did it without Orlando Brown. You did it without Tee Higgins. You look good in spurts. And yeah, man, this is just, it's frustrating. But if you guys have any questions, make sure you guys drop them down below. Akil the Great brought up the offensive line. The Bengals gave up 30 pressures on 66 dropbacks. That's awful. Does Frank Pollock have a job after this year? I feel like, first off, you lost Orlando Brown. He was a huge loss, but the offensive line played piss poor. And that also goes to another point that I want to bring up about the offensive line, about the game planning is there is not a semblance of a, short yard rushing attack from the Cincinnati Bengals team. And that's something that 75 to 80% of these teams have. The Bengals don't have that. They don't have the luxury to, run out the clock. And it's just not how this team has been built. And that's where we can discuss it is a front office thing, right? You go look at how teams are able to put games away. It's because they're able to pound the clock. This team just hasn't been built like that. And they've done it against the Panthers. They've done it against the Raiders, but they haven't been able to do it against great teams. So it's that's what I look at. Your inability to convert short yardage from a rushing standpoint. Pretty much everything is passing the rock. You put the ball in your hand of your best player, Joe Burrow, and you just can't consistently do that time and time again, 56 times. So all around, I think you put yourself in a very, very, very poor position.
I agree. Sorry guys. I'm
you're
out
good.
Here.
You're good.
I'm really trying. I'm struggling. I'm trying my best to bring the show. Let's keep getting some more questions though, Dan, before we head out of here.
Of course.
And
yeah, no, you're good. So once again, I think that just looking at the rest of the season, right? People are discussing what's the pathway to make the playoffs, and people are saying once again that we can just kind of keep on this discussion. Do you think that the season is over? And all around, do you think what is it going to take for them to turn this around?
The season isn't over. It feels like it. I mean, you could definitely lose the locker room, but we talked about this could be the worst thing. But I think there was a positive takeaway from the way that the offense performed. But let's really dissect it, just so y'all don't think that I'm just saying BS really quickly. Sorry, I was reading a comment. But next week they have the Chargers, right? And that's a primetime game, so we get to see the Bengals perform in front of the big stage audience again. That's a big game. Bengals can win that game, and they have their bye week. They take on the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I believe honestly are playing with house money. I don't know how they are where they are. The Steelers are just finding a way by just playing their brand of football. I think we can all agree the Steelers are a winnable game. Um, but it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. Like every game going forward is gonna be tough. You know, you got the Dallas Cowboys on tap here, and you have no. You might have Dak Prescott. You might not have Dak Prescott. A lot of people aren't expecting him to play because of the torn. They're saying it's worse than what they feared. And I think Jerry Jones is probably going to try to save face and not play him because the season is a lost cause. Then you have the Tennessee Titans, who look terrible.
Yep.
Then you face the Broncos.
The Browns.
I'm sorry, the Browns. Then you face the Broncos. This team can get to 10 wins, but it's not like I don't know. I just think that it's very hard to come back from this. I will tell you this. I it wouldn't shock me without divulging too much. It wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me if Cam Taylor-Britt isn't a starter next week, or if DJ Turner isn't a starter next week. I'll leave it at that without divulging too much. Just I like Mondays. That's all. That's what I'll say. I like Mondays, and I think that this performance leaves a bad taste in people's mouth.
Completely. Yeah. And it should. And that's where the conversation isn't that the season is over. It's, hey, you have to take this 1 week at a time. If they go out and they lose to the Chargers on prime time, that's a different conversation. All right. Then you can be having this conversation. Damn, you just lost 2 in a row. You lost, 3 out of your last 4. What's going on here? But just looking at how the pathway to victory, like you said, you still got Joe Burrow, and he played his ass off. And just discussing real quick, just kind of finally wrap up this game, Jared, what were some of your other takeaways from players? A couple bright spots real quick. Chris Jenkins had a very good, very positive, couple big plays in the first half. And he was a guy to where, hey, early on in the season, we were talking about the defensive line. He's a dude who's going to be with the Bengals for the next couple of years. And he's a dude who could potentially be a top tier defensive lineman. Had a couple big time plays on Derrick Henry. I like the way Mike Hilton played. He had a couple huge plays. He's the chess piece that we talked about before the game. Use him off the edge. Force Lamar Jackson in a couple bad decisions. So what were there any other players that kind of stood out to you, positive or negative, Jared?
I think one player, especially from a younger guy, was McKinley Jackson in the middle there, especially that first half. A lot of the times he wasn't in on tackles, but he was doing a lot of what, when DJ Reader was in Cincinnati, he was kind of doing a lot of what I saw him doing, and he was taking on multiple blockers. He wasn't getting blown off the ball. He was kind of standing tall and letting the other players get to Derrick Henry, getting 2 hats on Derrick Henry. So I really loved what I saw from him in the limited reps he got. And then once the Ravens offense started going a little faster tempo in the second half, he kind of didn't see the field as much. So I liked what I saw from him. Also, too, I think Eric All was a much bigger blow to this offense than a lot of people thought. And I thought Tanner Hudson, he stepped up. He did have a couple drops today, but there was a couple big third down conversions where he was the guy. And I liked what I saw from him, especially a guy who hadn't been seeing the field much, hadn't been really in the offense at all. I was pleasantly surprised by him, especially when I thought Mike Gesicki would take a much larger role. And also I think Chase Brown continuing, he had a couple really great reps today in pass protection, taking on Roquan Smith in the hole. And then even he had a couple runs that probably shouldn't have been 4 or 5 yard gains, and he turned them into something. So I liked what I saw from Chase Brown yet again. So those are some guys that stood out to me.
Completely. And I think that I think it's just frustrating looking at this. Like you talked about Chase Brown. For me, it's just the fumble leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Yeah. Man. That's the part where you just can't do that. And it brings me back to that Giants game where I'm going to be honest, I thought they were about to lose that game. And as soon as he fumbled, I was like, shit, here it goes. Giants about to get the ball back. And this game might turn around. You about to say something?
Yeah, I think the thing with Chase Brown as well is he's not supposed to be the focal back in this offense. You're supposed to have another guy who's taking those carries in between those tackles. And Chase Brown is really supposed to play that role that Giovanni Bernard played in this offense when he was in Cincinnati. And unfortunately, with just what happened to Zach Moss and Khalil Herbert being very, very new to the team, he can't play that role, and he's forced into something. He's forced to do something he's not designed and not meant to do. So I think, yeah, Chase Brown, that fumble was really, in my opinion, what shifted this entire game, and that was definitely really disappointing.
Completely. We get a couple more. Kevin K said, I feel like the players are playing for Burrow, not Zach. I don't feel like that's a bad take, to be honest. I think that there is something to be said about what Joe Burrow has done and what he's meant to this team. And even recently, what Joe Burrow has been saying on the media and what just the overall consensus, he's playing his ass off. I truly feel like this team is playing for Burrow. I feel like they do see that this dude is wired different. I feel like, and I mean, it's hard not to play for Burrow. I feel like all of us can sit up here and say, yo, if we were on that team, you would want to play for him. He's a guy that you want to win for because you know he wants it that bad. But we got a question here. Can you guys explain how it's possible to miss defensive holding, hands to the face, roughing the passing all on one play?
It was terrible. It was terrible. No matter which way you slice it, it was horrible. It's egregious, something that just can't take place. And you know that. But I think referee people are critical of the referees all over the league, but not even just in the NFL. I think that's in many different sports leagues. It's I love what James said. He said in the comments down here, he says, to me, this game shows that we can get rid of T for defense or a high pick. Do you agree? I think that this game shows that you, even with Tee Higgins not in the fold, that you can put up a lot of points offensively.
Mm-hmm.
I think the last two games show that. And I think that you should not sacrifice the integrity of your defense to pay two star receivers, elite wide receiver money. That's what I think. And I think that I said it before. I always felt like they'd be kicking themselves. I always felt like they'd be kicking themselves for the Jesse Bates thing. And unfortunately, was right. So,
and just to stick on that real quick, this is a team built very similar. And Joe Burrow is a quarterback. We can all agree in the sun. We've had this conversation before. He's in the mold of a guy like Tom Brady. Whether people want to agree with it or not, he uplifts the talent around him. And if you're paying a guy that much money, if you're going to be paying a star wide receiver that much money, you're going to have to make him prove it. And I'm not saying make him prove in the sense that show me, but hey, maybe you do not pay another receiver $25 million and say, hey, listen, I'm going to trust my quarterback can make that third wide receiver better. I'm going to trust my quarterback can make that third round wide receiver in Jermaine Burton better versus paying more and allocating more assets to your defense. So I totally agree with that sentiment saying, hey, listen, maybe you don't go out there and pay Tee Higgins $25 to $30 million. You allocate that to defense, or you allocate that to offensive line. You allocate that somewhere else because we've seen Burrow succeed with Trent Irwin. We've seen Burrow succeed with all these dudes. And he put up 400 yards with, respectfully, just mainly Jamar Chase. And we talked about it before this game. It was a game where it's either going to be like Mike Gesicki and these other dudes, or Jamar's going to go off for something. And he absolutely went off. So we could answer a couple more questions. Yeah, what were you saying?
Question.
No, you're good. One more question, just talking about what was one last takeaway from this game, Jared? What would you say one final takeaway?
I think the final takeaway for me is that this is a very good football team. The Cincinnati Bengals are a very, very, very good football team in some aspects of the game, and they can hang in there with the top teams in the league. The Baltimore Ravens are one of the teams that are favored to win the Super Bowl this year. There are just small things that this team needs to do better, and that's coaching and that's execution on the defensive side of the football from the players on the field. But if they fix these little things, especially if they want to go on a run here, it's there and it's attainable. But right now they're just not doing these things, and we keep saying, show me week in, week out, and they just can't do that. So don't be so down on this team to the point where you just want to blow everything up, because I do think the core is there, and they are a good team. They've hung in with the Chiefs. They hung in with the Commanders, who are 7-2 in the NFC and favorites in the NFC right now. So don't give up on this team this year and moving forward. That's my biggest takeaway from this game.
I would agree. I would agree with the sentiment that you can't give up on them now. I think that my takeaway is that this organization, I'm going to let the season play out, but this is an all-time fuck up from an organization, in the sense that I don't remember and I can't recall a season where, once again, the season isn't over, and that's why I still have hope. But it'd be very hard for me to recall and for somebody to pull up a quarterback and wide receiver duo that are playing as good as Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are, and for you to not make the playoffs. And I think it's very simple like that. You can look at teams like Tua and the Dolphins, see how they didn't succeed. They made the playoffs. If you don't make the playoffs with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow playing the way they are, this is an organizational fuck up for the history books. But I'm not writing the season off. It's on to Los Angeles Chargers. So
I think that it's time to look in the mirror, and I'll keep saying it. I think that organizational structure changes need to take place in the offseason from a philosophical standpoint for this team to achieve the things that they want to achieve. I wish I could be live and and talk more right now, but I am battling the flu. I appreciate you guys for tuning in to the recap show. I wanted to make sure I jumped on here and talk with you guys because I won't be live tomorrow morning. Try to get some rest and get healthy to be back live Monday at 10 a.m. I appreciate y'all. This was a tough one, but we're hoping that this Bengals team can kind of figure out a way to rattle off some wins here because the season is slipping and it's slipping fast. So some changes are in store. But we appreciate y'all for tuning in. Jared, I appreciate you for joining me, man. And I wish we got to do it again here shortly. I'm hoping to get back to 100%, hopefully sooner rather than later. I take a lot of ginger ale, a lot of NyQuil, and we appreciate y'all. Again, Bengals faithful, keep your heads up. It's not the way that we wanted it to be, but we're hoping that this team could bounce back in a big way. But until next time, remember, who dat?